I'm Vinny Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. And for everyone, it's been a really difficult year. 2020 started kind of normal and then went south very quickly and has been really just a terrible year for so many people. Now, let's take it one step further and think about two particular people and what 2020 has been like for them. I mean, when this year started, they were newlyweds, getting ready to begin their brand new lives together, and they were doing some traveling. They headed down to Hawaii. I mean, just gorgeous down there with a big bag of money, not a care in the world. And here we are now as 2020 is winding up, and that couple is now locked up, separated, and waiting for their trial to happen in 2021. Of course, I'm talking about Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell, the so-called Doomsday couple. Well, they are from Idaho, and they're from a specific part of Idaho where they've been living, which is eastern Idaho, which is really home to many folks who follow the Mormon religion. And they did at one time, I don't know if they currently are devout Mormons or not, but at one point they were, and that was part of the reason why they were there in eastern Idaho. So now they're getting ready for their trial, which involves Lori's missing children who were found dead and buried in Chad's backyard. Well, apparently Lori and Chad don't want their neighbors and people that they chose to live near and amongst to judge them at trial, and they're looking for a change of venue. Chanley Painter, Court TV legal correspondent, has more for us tonight.
Justice for JJ and Tylee would be Chad and Lori getting sentenced for their murder and spending the rest of their life behind bars.
East Idaho resident Janice Summer has made up her mind when it comes to the guilt of Doomsday Prophet Chad Daybell and his wife, Lori. The couple is accused of conspiring to hide the remains of Lori's missing children on Chad Daybell's property in the fall of 2019, months before the couple believed the world would end.
It's just sad that they use religion to take the lives of so many innocent people.
Sentiments like these leave little doubt that the defense will ask to move the trial out of Fremont County.
Any defense attorney worth his salt would want to move the case someplace where nobody knew any of the parties or had ever heard about the case.
Finding those potential jurors in East Idaho will be nearly impossible, says former prosecutor Lynn Hosner.
They may not exactly know who did it, but it's obvious that they were killed. They were buried on the defendant's property. And I'm certain that people will make a lot of assumptions based on those two factors.
The couple's fringe beliefs could also hurt them in this area where many people belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I don't think people really realized how many fringe believers there were in the area, and I think that's partly what's captivated people, that there was something going on here that they didn't really know about.
East Idaho News has been on the story since the beginning.
The interest in this case is immense.
East Idaho News' website traffic speaks to the case's intrigue.
Chad Daybell's story started in December of 2019. And you can see that between November and December, we jumped up about 3 million. And going from there to this year, we've had a lot of Daybell coverage, and the traffic from it just keeps going up.
Managing editor Nate Sunderland agrees it will be difficult to find an unbiased jury in East Idaho.
You go to the barber shop, this is what we talk about. You go to a hair salon, this is what we talk about. We've been talking about it for months.
Ultimately, a district court judge will decide where the case ends up.
I'd probably just want to move it to Timbuktu, but since you can't do that, I probably would just as soon try it in northern Idaho, which I suspect doesn't have the publicity that we've had here in southern Idaho.
All right, Timbuktu, maybe it is. Well, let's take a look at what the latest is on this extremely important issue. Chad Daybell has filed a brief in support of his motion to change venue, and Lori Vallow, through her attorney, has filed a notice of hearing to argue motions to dismiss and for a venue change, and all of this happening right after the new year, January 6th. So January 6th looming as an extremely important day in the case involving the Doomsday couple. Let me bring in my colleagues tonight. Joining me, Court TV anchor Ted Rowlands and Court TV special contributor Ashley Banfield. Welcome to you both. Ashley, I always find it intriguing when, you choose to live in a certain part of the world and then things suddenly don't go right for you. And all of a sudden you don't trust the people that you chose to be your own neighbors.
On the surface, that's what it seems like. And then, of course, there's the media circus that nobody ever expects. And so I don't know that any of us has ever covered a story. Ted, you were on Scott Peterson. Vinny, you've been on every single high-profile story, but I don't think any of us has ever covered a high-profile story where there hasn't been a change of venue motion, offered right off the bat. And I'm not surprised. I would have been very surprised if they didn't seek a change of motion. What I am particularly interested in, Vinny, is that the defense has been doing some informal polling, it appears, asking some of those very sweet, friendly, kind East Idaho neighbors what their opinions are. And not only are they suggesting that people have heard of this case, I expect they've heard of it. I expect at Timbuktu they've heard of the case. But that's not the barometer. It's whether you can be fair and impartial. And what I found quite astounding was that the defense is suggesting that people they've canvassed have made up their minds about the case. That's where it gets problematic.
Ted, a lot of cases get moved. You've been bouncing all around, chasing Scott Peterson and Michael Jackson, trying to find a fair and impartial jury. The one thing that I don't think defense attorneys really realize is if you try it in the jurisdiction where it happened, all those people who can't be fair and impartial end up not being on the jury, and you're left with like the best defense jurors ever.
Yeah, I think in this case, why? Because here's what's going to happen. If they don't grant it, they're going to find out during the voir dire process that it is going to be extremely difficult, only because the population center is so small and the percent of people living in Fremont County, in Madison County, are overwhelmingly LDS. And that is a major issue when you have the leader of the LDS ward or area saying, do not participate with this criminal trial or any trial, don't be interviewed by the attorneys. And by the way, these two people who are on trial have completely bastardized our religion, which we take very seriously. I just think it's save the money, do it now, send it to Boise, and be done.
Well, they've actually laid out some specific reasons and things that have happened as a basis for it. One of them being a recording made by Lori Vallow Daybell. And this was in one of her groups that she was meeting with, so it would be people that were locally. Let's take a listen.
I had been married to someone who was very awful, who raped my children. And I had divorced him and gotten away from him. And he had joined the church. He spoke in state conference. Everyone thought he was wonderful. He was very good showman of all those things. And after we were divorced, he told everybody that I was this lying, crazy Mormon, and got up in court and said all these horrible things about me, and turned it around to where the judges believed him instead of me. And he was constantly trying to get custody of my 3-year-old daughter, and just to rub it in my face. And I went through a lot of years of this kind of hard stuff, and I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him, like the scriptures say, like Nephi killed him, just to stop the pain and to stop him coming after me and to stop him coming after my children. And I just thought I couldn't take it anymore. And I would go through the scriptures and find all the things like, if he comes against you once, if he comes against you twice, if he comes against you 3 times, then you can kill him. It says it in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon. I was like, there it is. There's my answer. I don't want to do anything that's wrong. I did not have a murderous heart. I just wanted to stop the bleeding and stop the pain.
And that former husband was already dead when she was talking about this. And again, that's been, I guess, investigated to a certain extent, and there's no indication that she committed murder there. But she's talking about murder and the scriptures. So, Ashley, that could be part of what Ted referenced her interpretation of what the scriptures say, how you should live your life.
Well, we're all allowed to interpret the scripture the way we like to, but, you know, in the scripture it says you can have slaves too, and you can't in this country. And you can't murder people either in pretty much every country that I've ever been to. So, you know, I think that gives us a real window into Lori Vallow's soul. Because let me just say right now that the state investigated the claims she made against Joseph Ryan and determined that there was no basis for her claims of sexual assault, nor her son's. And so for her to just outright defame this dead man by saying he raped my children turns my stomach, because she abandoned her children. She abandoned her dead children. I don't know if she had anything to do with the dying of those children, but just to hear her say these things about Joe Ryan just makes me, I just break out in hives when I hear this kind of thing. And that she, you know, she repeated it a few times. It wasn't just one slip of the tongue. I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him. It says so in the scripture. Come at me once, come at me twice. And, you know, this kind of thing, I can see why she thinks that this is prejudicial. It is. Evidence against you is prejudicial. So she can't just assume that that's not going to be something that follows her. She said it. It's out there. And I don't think people can unhear it.
And I think they have, you know, access to the internet in Boise as well, but we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. We spoke with some East Idaho residents because, you know, Court TV's been covering the story all year long. We've been out to that area. We were at the courthouse, and there was a ceremony there to get kind of a flavor for what some of the folks think about the case.
At the beginning, it was like a big shocker to our community. Like, we are such a small town. I don't think people realize how small of a town we are. And it got quiet a little bit, and then once they found the remains and got more information, it spread like wildfire here. Not that one, but one before.
Being a grandparent is one thing, but I can't relate because to lose them would be beyond words. I mean, I am now. For those family members and grandparents, there are no words. All I can think is there's evil that exists in this world. And I truly believe that's what we saw. Obviously, you know, you would like to think it could have been prevented, but sometimes you see the evil, sometimes you don't.
So that's a little bit of the flavor, Ted. And you know, part of this is when you're talking to prospective jurors, the one thing you want them to be is honest. And I would think that the folks in East Idaho, when they were being voir dired, would be very honest. Whereas you go to the big city of Boise, I don't know how straightforward everyone's going to be. Only kidding, folks in Boise. I think you'll be honest too. But I would tend to trust the answers that you're going to get.
Yeah, and here's the answers you're going to get are those answers. You're going to get people that come in who absolutely don't want to be on this jury because they, first of all, believe these two defendants are guilty. And can you imagine living there and being on the jury that didn't find them guilty? It's just, this to me is such a no-brainer that there should be a change of venue granted because of the religion issue, but more importantly because of the population issues and the immense amount of media coverage. And I think it's going to happen.
Now, there was also a letter, and this gets back to the religious part of it, written by Chad's sister, Heather Daybell. This is from August 12, 2020, sent to the women of Henry's Fork Steak. And in part it reads, it was a very long letter, but part of it read, I've racked my brain over and over wondering how it got this bad, how my relative could believe in ideas that go directly against the doctrines of our church and come to church each week as though all was well, that he could get others to believe those teachings and follow him, that those teachings could ultimately lead to the death of innocent people. And this is a letter that was disseminated amongst many folks. This might be, you know, another one of the good pieces of evidence for the defense as a means to get it out of this particular area, Ashley.
Well, that wasn't the only letter. You know, the church also asked its flock to not talk about this case with the police at one point, and that is very distressing. last I checked, the courts and the police are all part of the government. And so I don't know if that admonition from the church extends to the courts. I can't imagine that it does, but I couldn't imagine any church asking someone not to cooperate with, police asking questions about the murders of children. It's a whole whack-o mess, shall I say, in legal terms, in that particular jurisdiction. But I always come back to OJ. If you can pick a jury for OJ, you can pick a jury for the Daybells. I thought the same thing about Casey Anthony. She was the most hated woman in America, deemed so by a member of the press. But they found a jury for her. They did have to go to another jurisdiction to get that jury, but they did find a jury for her. And guess what? That jury found her not guilty. And OJ's jury found him not guilty.
Why does she do that, Ted? Why does she keep reminding me of that verdict? Why? Why? All right. Yeah, I get
It's
it.
a good one.
Yeah. And you know what? There have been a lot of analogies between Lori Vallow and that woman that you mentioned.
Yes, that
so
woman.
We'll see if it follows through during the course of the trial.